In 1994, a 45-year-old man climbed into a boxing ring that everyone said he had no business being in. He was heavy, he was bald, he was old enough to be most of his opponent's father. And when the 10th round ended, George Foreman was the heavyweight champion of the world, the oldest in history. It was one of the greatest comebacks sports has ever seen. But here is the part almost nobody talks about. That comeback was not the biggest thing Foreman won that decade. The biggest thing he won came with a power cord and a drip tray. Because George Foreman, one of the most feared punchers who ever lived, made far more money from a kitchen grill than he ever made throwing a single punch. And the reason why is a lesson about money that most people who earn a fortune never learn until it's already gone. This is the story of how George Foreman lost one fortune, fought his way back for a second, and then made more than both of them combined, without ever lifting a glove. To understand how strange his real fortune was, you have to understand how terrifying he used to be. In the early 1970s, George Foreman was the most feared man in boxing. In 1973, he did not just beat Joe Frazier, he demolished him, knocking the champion down 6 times in 2 rounds, while the announcer screamed that Frazier was going down again and again. Foreman was undefeated, enormous, and untouchable. He was making the kind of money a heavyweight champion made in that era. Huge purses, the biggest of them from his 1974 fight with Muhammad Ali in Zaire, the famous Rumble in the Jungle. That was the night Ali leaned on the ropes, let Foreman punch himself exhausted, and knocked him out. It was Foreman's first loss, and it cost him his title, but it did not cost him his earning power. The purses kept coming. And then, a few years later, everything changed. After a loss in 1977 and a profound religious experience in the dressing room afterward, Foreman walked away from boxing entirely. He became an ordained preacher back home in Houston. He opened a church, and he opened a youth center for kids in the neighborhood he came from. Here is where much of that money went. By Foreman's own telling, over the next decade, a large part of that first fortune quietly drained away during his years out of boxing, into the ministry, into keeping that youth center's lights on, into life, and into investments that did not work out. The purses that had felt endless in his 20s turned out to be very much finite. Think about the scale of it. In his prime, Foreman commanded some of the largest purses in the sport, money that would set most people up for life. And within roughly a decade of walking away, most of it was gone. Not through scandal, not through a single catastrophe, but through the slow, ordinary arithmetic of money that comes in once and then only goes out. That is the trap of the paycheck. It feels permanent while it is still arriving, and reveals itself as temporary only after it stops. That is the first lesson, and it is the one almost every high earner learns the hard way. Boxing money is paycheck money. It can be enormous, but it stops the moment you stop. And Foreman had stopped. In 1987, at 38 years old, 10 years out of the ring, and more than 100 pounds heavier than his prime, George Foreman announced that he was coming back to boxing. The reason he gave was not glory. It was blunt and unglamorous. He needed the money to keep the youth center open. The world laughed at him, a heavy, middle-aged ex-champion chasing a paycheck against men half his age. It looked like a sad ending. Promoters and pundits treated it as a punchline. A former champion, softened by a decade of preaching and quiet living, stepping back into the most dangerous sport there is at an age when most fighters are long retired, essentially because he had run short of money. Nobody was supposed to root for that, but he kept winning, and as he won, something no one predicted began to happen. The grim, silent destroyer of the 1970s came back as something completely different. A smiling, funny, self-deprecating grandfather who joked about cheeseburgers and his own waistline. The man America had once been afraid of became the man America could not help but like. Then came the moment that sealed it. In 1994, at 45, Foreman knocked out Michael Moorer, a champion 19 years younger, to win back the heavyweight title he had lost 20 years earlier. The oldest heavyweight champion in the history of the sport. But watch closely what the comeback did, because this is the hinge of the whole story. It did not just win him a belt, it rebuilt him into the most likable man in America. And likability, it would turn out, was worth many times more than any championship. In the mid-1990s, a company called Sultan had a product it could not sell, a small electric grill that drained the fat off your food. Decent idea, no traction. What it needed was a face. Someone warm, trustworthy, and funny enough that people would believe him in their kitchen. It needed exactly the character George Foreman had just spent his comeback becoming. And now we arrive at the single decision that made him truly rich. When Foreman signed on to sell that grill, he did not take a flat fee to put his name on the box. He took a royalty, a percentage of every sale. Hold on that one word, because it is the entire story: percentage. A flat fee would have paid him once and been done. A percentage paid him on every grill sold, forever, whether he showed up that day or not. Put a number on what he turned down to get there. A famous face taking a flat endorsement fee in that era might have earned a few $1 million once, and then watch the company keep everything the product made after that. Foreman chose the other side of the table. He tied his own income directly to the thing's success. So when the grill won, he won, again and again, on a scale no appearance fee could ever have touched. And the grill did not just sell, it became a phenomenon. More than 100 million of them sold. At the peak, Foreman was reportedly earning somewhere around $4.5 million a month in royalties. Not a year. A month. Then, in 1999, Sultan reportedly paid him around $137.5 million to buy out the rights to use his name outright, turning his royalty stream into one final lump sum. Add the royalties and that buyout together, and Foreman is estimated to have earned north of $200 million connected to that grill, far more than every boxing purse of his entire career combined, the Ali millions included. The most feared puncher of his generation made his real fortune standing in a kitchen, selling a grill. There are two lessons here, and they stack on top of each other. The first is the difference between a paycheck and a percentage. Boxing paid Foreman for his labor. Gigantic sums, but they stopped when he stopped, and eventually they ran out. The grill paid him a percentage of an outcome, and that kept paying him while he slept. Most people spend their entire lives trying to negotiate a bigger paycheck. The people who build lasting wealth chase a percentage instead. A royalty, a cut of something that keeps selling long after the work is done. A slice of an outcome beats the largest salary you will ever be offered. And you do not need to invent a grill to use this. It is the difference between being paid once for your time and being paid again and again for the value your name or your work keeps creating. A commission tail instead of a flat rate, a royalty instead of a one-time fee. The vehicle changes from person to person. The principle does not. The second lesson is quieter, and it is about the comeback. Foreman only got that grill deal because of who the comeback turned him into. He went back to boxing out of desperation for a paycheck. And the real prize was not the paycheck at all. It was the likability, the second act, the character. Sometimes the thing you grind for is not where the money ends up. The money ends up in what that grind makes you into. It is worth sitting with how unlikely the whole chain was. The fists made him famous. The faith nearly emptied him out. The shortage of money sent him back to the ring. And the ring handed him not another purse, but a personality. The single asset that, attached to the right deal, would print money for the rest of his life. George Foreman died in March of 2025. He left behind a fortune built not on the fists that made him famous, but on a single decision most people never get the chance to make, and fewer still make correctly. When they offered him a check, he asked for a piece instead. If that changed how you think about the difference between getting paid and getting a piece, subscribe, because the next story is about a man who was offered more money than almost anyone in television history to keep working, and turned it down flat. Not because he did not want the money, because he already owned something worth far more. You will not believe the number he walked away from.